Hello, Rebels of the Sharp Illusion. Normally, I start off this podcast by saying hi, but I'm going to start this one off by saying hydration. We know how important hydration is for our bodies. It's the thing that keeps us running, right? You want to be a well-oiled machine. You want to be running efficiently. You know what can help you run efficiently? Liquid IV. It is the category-winning hydration brand fueling your well-being, and their hydration multiplier is the one product that you are missing in your daily routine. It comes in a little stick that's a powder, and in just one stick, you get 5 essential vitamins and 2 times faster hydration than water alone. If you use it first thing in the morning, maybe before a workout, when you feel run down, maybe after a long night out and doing a little partying, you know what I mean? And even what if you have like a long flight or something like that and you just bleh, right? We all feel that way. Bleh. So add this to your water, and that convenient packaging can go with you anywhere you go, even if you're going to the gym or you're traveling or you're at work and maybe you didn't have a great breakfast. At least it's something that will fuel you up in the morning. And there's a whole bunch of flavors that are available, like sea berry, strawberry lemonade, Concord grape, lemon lime, pina colada, tropical punch, watermelon, strawberry, passion fruit, guava, acai berry. Did I say that right? I never know how to say that. But those are just some of the flavors. Here's some statistics for you folks. 1 stick of liquid IV in 16 ounces of water contains 5 essential vitamins: B3, B5, B6, B12, and even vitamin C. And we all know how important those B vitamins are. It's got 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sports drinks. It's made with premium ingredients. It's non-GMO, and it is free from gluten, dairy, and soy. I'm going to offer you a great deal, Rebels. If you go to liquidiv.com and use offer code Sherpa, you can get 20% off of anything that you order on that site when you're shopping for some better hydration. So that's Liquid IV. Check it out at liquidiv.com. Podcast that you're listening to is being presented to you in cooperation with the SJ Network. If you're a person who'd like to appear on a podcast, contact Stephen Joyner at s-j-network.com. Let's get on with the show.
Today on Too Many Podcasts, the Sherpa will be chatting with Scott from the No New Friends podcast.
You know, my ex-friend used to hit me with stringed instruments. If only I had known about her history of violins.
Welcome to Too Many Podcasts, the podcast about podcasts. Now, podcasting from the Sherpa Chalet on Mount Podcastia, here's your host, Jim, the Podcast Sherpa.
Hello there, Rebels of the Sharp Illusion. Welcome to Too Many Podcasts. It is the podcast about podcasts and so much more. And I am your guide, Jim, the Podcast Sherpa, leading you through the mountains of Podcastia. And we check out a whole bunch. We've got a special interview this week. And, of course, some Sherpa samples coming up right after that. So I am so glad that you've joined me. Hello there. I didn't have enough cake, but I'm sure we can let that slide. So anyway, why don't we talk a little bit about our guest today?
Who's our guest today, Sherpa?
His name is Scott. He is from Florida. He is one of the hosts of the No New Friends podcast, which is making quite a buzz down there in the state of Florida. As a matter of fact, and he's got plans to make it even bigger, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for him because judging by what we've learned about the podcast, it definitely sounds like a lot of fun and maybe one of those episodes that you might want to be checking out. We had a really fun interview. He's a really interesting guy and he had some great stories, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy them. So without any further ado, why don't we head on into the listening room at the Sherpa Chalet for a listen to my interview with Scott from the No New Friends podcast. Hello there, Rebels of the Sherpa Illusion. We are in the Friends conference room at the Sherpa Chalet, and I'm talking to Scott, and he is from the No New Friends podcast. No topic off limits in his show. I know it's a lot about adulting. He is down in Florida, and we were both complaining about our internet woes, but we have both made it here, so you guys are going to get to know him, and we're going to hear a little bit about his podcast. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you too. So what brought the idea for this podcast? I mean, it's a lot about adulting, right? Isn't that what the gist of it is?
It is. And it's such a funny story because from the age of 5 years old, I wanted to be on the radio, as I'm sure most podcasters did. They wanted to be on the radio or wanted to talk for a living. Mm-hmm. And before the pandemic, I did some radio here and there. I would get called to do guest hosting spots on a talk radio show here in Orlando. And I wanted to start a podcast. The original idea was going to be called Working Dad Jokes. It was 4 dads who just kind of, it's an FM style talk show where we just talk about anything. Mm-hmm. And I am not tech savvy at all. I have no idea what to start with, what to get. So it took me 2 years to actually even think about starting this process.
Right.
So fast forward, COVID happens, and the radio show that I did, they invited me on again, and we recorded online on StreamYard. And I'm like, wait a second, if they can do this virtually, why can't I? So of course, this is when we discovered Zoom was during the pandemic. And I was going to just test recording, see if I could figure it out with my father. My father was not available. So I called my best friend, Mary, and I'm like, hey, can you jump on for 20 minutes? And let's just test something out. And, if it's good, we'll publish it. We'll see. And that's where it started. It started as just a joke, just testing. The episode was pretty good. We've got great chemistry. She's my best friend. And, anytime you have a male-female dynamic with best friends, sure, it's fun. And then and at the time, it was just a podcast about everything and nothing. And as you know, podcast world, you have to have a specific niche. You can't just say, oh, we just talk about random stuff and expect people to find you. It doesn't work that way. So as we progressed and as we brought on a third and then eventually a fourth co-host, we're like, what do we talk about? Well, we talk about our lives a lot and the funny things that happen, our adulting fails, if you will. So we're not doing life hacks or any crap like that. It's my co-host's son just got a speeding ticket and she's yelling at him about the speeding ticket. Well, meanwhile, she didn't tell him that she backed her car into his car. So, it's stuff like that. And, a lot of the stories are exaggerated. We get into my sex life and how, I've got large dogs and we don't remove the dog from the bed. And that became a funny ongoing thing about my relationship with my dogs. And so, it's funny takes, and we've got some bits in there. We've got New Jersey man versus Florida man, where one of our listeners actually records this whole segment and he gives us two news stories. One is from Jersey, one is from Florida, because 3 of us are from Florida. Another co-host is from New Jersey. And they're really, really fun, funny stories. Mm-hmm. And then Chris, our other co-host, is so gifted. He can write comedy during the show. So we end the show with him giving us his Cliff's Notes of the episode. And it's in a stand-up comedian monologue type delivery. It's super funny. We have so much fun. Wednesday nights are so much fun for us.
It sounds like a lot of fun, especially I think when you can drag your friends in, because sometimes when you're doing a podcast and your friends don't quite get it and you can't really explain to them that feeling, but when you're doing it with your best friends, they've got that same spirit with you. They want to do well also.
Right. And the funny thing about that is, okay, Mary and I have known each other for years, and then Chris, we never knew. We just met him from collaborating on another podcast who had him on their show at the same time as us. So we went 1 year without even meeting him in person. And it was a really neat experience when him and his wife came down to Florida and stayed at my house. We've never met in person. And my internet friends are staying in my house. Like everything my mom taught me not to do as a kid, here I am. I'm just inviting strangers that I met on the internet into my home. But it's a lot of fun. It's a really, really interesting dynamic. And then we've expanded our show. We now do 2 episodes a week, No New Friends After Dark, where we kind of pull back the curtain on maybe there's something that we talked about in the Sunday episode that we didn't really get to really dive into. So we talk about that, and it's a little bit more uncensored. But we've been also getting into more serious topics, which does relate back to adulting. We've had someone on who is a recovering drug addict and talking about his struggles on with that. We've done a mental health episode. One of our co-hosts on that show is he's a gay vacation planner. So we talk a lot about the struggles that he goes through in the LGBTQ plus community, and we're trying to kind of make that show the gay icon podcast, if you will. Just we're allies and we want to be there and support and educate. And so we're tackling these deeper issues and taking a somewhat serious look at them, but it's in our nature to be funny. So we still keep our personality in that show.
Yeah, I mean, the good and the bad does come with getting older, right? I mean,
of course.
So, and the fact that you can look at a serious topic and still have like a bit of a sense of humor about it, where like you said, I'm sure your intent isn't to sound preachy. It's just like this is real life, and this is what people go through.
Exactly.
So do you have like any favorite episodes that you've done so far? It sounds like you've covered a lot of ground in the time that you've been doing the show.
There's so many good ones. We're up to almost 150 episodes, and then with the After Dark, we're over 150. Man, we've had some really, really cool ones. I think my most recent favorite is we had Jeremy Miller, who played Ben Seaver on Growing Pains, on. And I was already so excited about just having a celebrity, a childhood star that I grew up watching on the show. But that interview took on a life of its own because he's so transparent with some of the trauma that he went through as a child actor. And he didn't hold back. He didn't say, okay, cut that out or anything. No, it was real. It was raw. And that's what kind of inspired us to take more of a serious, a mostly serious approach to some harder life issues and all that. So recently, that's my favorite. We did an interview with a guy. His name is Carlos Navarro. He was in Disney Plus Marvel's Hawkeye. He was one of the main 3 Tracksuit Mafia. He was in The Walking Dead. And so that was it. And he's a local celebrity here in Orlando on the radio. So that was like a highlight episode for me. And then some of our really funny ones, completely innocently, we're talking about wholesale. And my co-host said, well, I really like BJ's. And it kind of took on this whole life of its own with innuendos. So now Costco is an innuendo for sex, and it's this ongoing joke. And then again, all by accident. And then we have this mascot for our show. His name is Bubba Job. Now, Bubba Job is one of these Instagram scammers that will slide into your DMs. He's from the Gambia and he needs money and all that. And we've kept communications with this guy because he's just like, he's a real person. And we made this whole character. We do Twitch lives. We do Madden, and we built Bubba Job as the quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. And we had this whole Super Bowl event where we put together 11 commercials that we did and a halftime show, and just like little things like that just happen by accident and take on a life of its own and kind of have a cult following within our community of listeners.
Now, I understand. Was it your podcast that actually was it nominated for an award or received an award?
Yeah, it has been. Thank you for. We're in the season right now. We're in nomination season, but we're trying to be nominated as a finalist for the 3rd year in a row. We haven't won the competition, but it's Orlando Weekly, which is a local publication here in Orlando, and it's their best of Orlando competition. So they talk about nightlife, restaurants, attractions. But we're in the category local notable. So it's best local podcast, best local politician, best local big shot that's not a politician. Just any category you can think of, they have it. So vote.orlandoweekly.com, best local podcast under the category local notables, no new friends podcast.
There we go. See, you already got me one little quick plug in.
Yeah, of course I was going to drop that. We're in the season right now. But there's a podcast here that's also on the radio. They've won 11 years in a row. Nobody's ever beat them. And they even changed the category last year. It was best local podcast that's not on the radio. But they've got 2 shows, one that's on the radio and one that's not. And the name is slightly different. So there was like a little bit of a loophole, but I think all the other local podcasts were all trying to band together to dethrone them. So we'll see what happens this year, but it's a fun competition. And then we were a finalist for Mainline Marketing. It's a marketing company here. They were giving away Shure microphones. We were a finalist for that. And at the time we had really crappy microphones. I mean, like it looked like an air traffic controller microphone. It was a gaming thing. Mary, and this is when it was just me and Mary, she would record on her iPhone using just earphones. It was awful. It was so awful. Our first 20 episodes are just, I cringe every time I listen to it. So the coolest thing from that experience was we didn't win, but they brought all the finalists down to their offices, and they have like all this professional recording studios because Shure is their main client. Mm-hmm. And so they interviewed us and they immediately fell in love with our personalities because, we're pretty awesome. And the guy felt bad and gave us 2 Shure microphones. So, and that changed everything for us because we had the confidence to put on a good show because the audio was really, really bad. And now we've got great sounding audio, great microphones, great headphones. And we've had a lot of people meet us, listen to us, and then just believe in us. And a lot of things have fallen into our laps. So whether you believe in a higher power or the universe or whatever, like there's something telling us that we're on the right track, keep doing it because things keep falling in our laps. Our mutual friend who connected us just fell into my lap, Yeah.
It's interesting when you have a show and then all of a sudden you see when you're taking that big leap, when all of a sudden you realize people are noticing you and you're being heard.
Yeah.
Where like the first couple of episodes, you're like, I don't know who's going to be hearing this.
Right. It's just going to be friends and family and me listening to it on every single platform just to make the numbers increase. Yeah, it's really cool. And the best part, we don't have a Joe Rogan size audience, but we've got a respectable size audience. Mm-hmm. And the really cool thing is we've been able to convert about 10% of our listeners into Patreon members. So we have this really cool community on Discord, and it's self-sustaining at this point. If I didn't comment during the day, it would still be rolling. And one of the big perks of our Patreon is they get to watch us record live. And one of them just messaged me today and he's like, it's amazing. A year ago, it was just me watching. And now we're up to, 10, 11, 12, 15 people at a time watching us record live and giving up 3 hours of their Wednesday because we record both episodes on Wednesday and they're watching us for 3 hours. It's insane to me that people would pay us to listen to us and then stay with us for 3 hours and watch us. And to me, that's like the cool thing that we've built. And I never really thought that our podcast had value. It's just to make you laugh, which is value in itself, but I didn't give it enough credit. But seeing this community that we've built and all the support that we have, and then the friendships that have been made from that is the coolest and most rewarding thing. If I never hit 1 million listeners per episode, the fact that we have that is enough for me right now.
I think that's the best part of it when you have the engaged listeners. If you have 20,000 people who can take you or leave you, as opposed to 1,000 people who hang on every word that you say and they comment with you on social media, that makes it more fun.
Yeah. A podcasting coach. I listened to Kevin Schmidlin, who hosts the show Grow the Show. Yeah. I listened to him and a lot of it is more about how to type or very, very specific podcasts, not necessarily entertainment, but I take nuggets. And he did an episode once and he said, you don't have to be the best episode or best podcast. You don't even have to be like the most popular. You just need to be someone's favorite podcast. Right. Like the Knicks, he used that example. The Knicks aren't any good, but that's someone's favorite team and they're going to be loyal and they're going to be engaged. And my goal shifted at that point to, instead of focusing on being the biggest and the best and all that, I just wanted to be people's favorite. And I think we've achieved that. I just need more favorites. That's all.
When you record live, are there people in the audience? Or are they just watching you guys like on YouTube?
So we do 2 different things. The first, our Sunday episode is divided into 3 segments.
Okay.
So segment 1, we stream live on Twitch for anybody to watch. Anybody can watch segment 1. And that's to hopefully suck them in and then become Patreon members. And then the rest of that show, we stream to our Discord.
Okay.
I've got Chris, one of my co-hosts, who's extremely tech savvy and knows how to do all that stuff. So they get to watch us on Discord. And then for the After Dark episode, we go back to Twitch, which has an interesting cult following in itself, which has been kind of fun to build.
Yeah, the reason that I'm asking is the way that you've described the show and and how everybody's hearing this. It sounds like you guys could probably do something with like a live audience or something like that if you can work out the logistics to it.
That is the goal. So in again, logistics, figuring out getting Chris down from New Jersey, but we want to start small and we want to do. There's a couple pubs or bars in the area that I want to record at and have an audience and be this really cool thing. But my goal, my 5-year goal is the podcast that I spoke about earlier that keeps winning this competition. Every year every once in a while, they will record at Hard Rock Live here in Orlando at Universal Studios. Okay. That is my 5-year goal. I want to record at Hard Rock and have, thousands of people watching us. That's the big goal, right?
Yeah, and if you have that award under your belt, you could say, we're the guys who knocked out the other guys.
Exactly. One of these years, it's going to happen. That's, again, I don't put timestamps on goals because sometimes things don't work out that way, and then you get disappointed, discouraged. I always I do things without the timestamp, little goals. I want to beat Tom and Dan. That's like the first goal. I want to beat Tom and Dan. Then I want to do a live recording at a smaller venue than Hard Rock Live.
Sure. And like you said, I mean, that's a beautiful thought that you can't put a time limit on it, because I'm sure with all that time that COVID went on, people probably wanted to do live in studio interviews, and everybody was like, well, what do we do now?
Right.
And like you said, this is where that Zoom, the program that had been there probably for so long and nobody even gave it a second thought, was like everybody's lifeline to the rest of the world.
Yep. Let me tell you, I love Zoom. We did so many, other than the death and the arguing and all that, I miss OG COVID from the standpoint that I saw family more during that, a month when we were all on lockdown. I saw family more and interacted with family more during that time. I mean, we did a beer pong tournament over Zoom. Just did all these fun things because we had the time. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest take, again, outside of the death and all the terrible things that happened, but what COVID did is it allowed us to take a pause and enjoy life for a minute, and gave us some time to really do some of those things that we didn't have time for.
So, I mean, the podcast, like you said, is about adulting and, and then falling into these situations that we have in everyday life when you get to be like a certain age.
Right.
What do you think was like the biggest adulting moment for you?
I think it was, so I've got an interesting story, and I haven't even told it on my own podcast, but in my 20s, I was in a different marriage, had kids very early. Finances were not good, so I destroyed my credit. Mm-hmm. And the biggest adulting win that I had, and it's not a funny story or anything, but being able to, in 2016, finance my own car by myself with no cosigner, no borrowing money to put as a down payment. And at the time, my credit was a 560, something like that. I mean, nothing great. But I was able to finance a car. And now fast forward, I've got an amazing wife. We live in a beautiful house and a beautiful community. And I've got an 800 credit score. So just overcoming the initial adulting, because I failed at adulting in my 20s, like miserably, and with kids. So, not only was I screwing up my life, I was screwing up theirs too. They're still in therapy today. I feel terrible about it. And then in my 30s, my early 30s, I didn't do great at adulting. But right around my mid 30s, it's when it kind of clicked and things started coming together for me, and I started making better decisions. And so just overcoming the adversity and the hole that I set myself in, and then finally getting it together at like 35, 36 was a huge adulting win. I have my wife to thank for that, because she's rich. I'm broke, but she's rich. She pays all the bills. And it's really cute when I take her out to dinner because I use her credit card, but no one has to know that.
And I guess the title of your podcast really ties into being adulting, because you kind of get to a point where you're not making a lot of friends after your 20s and your 30s, because you're confining everything that you're doing in your life.
Right. And it's funny. That's what the name means now. And going back to February of 2021, I wish we would have rethought the name a little bit more, because that's not what it meant then. It was, Mary used to always say, anytime I, would make a new friend, she's like, no new friends. So that was where the name came from. Mm-hmm. And looking back at it has nothing to do with our podcast, except now, as we tell these stories, it's morphed into, well, it's not really, we don't want new friends. It's that we're so awkward and do so many stupid things, and we don't have time. That's why it's no new friends. It's not that we don't want new friends. It's just People don't want to be our friends.
Okay. So you guys heard that now. Scott has made that official. So, you can be his friend.
Yeah, we love friends now. But
just don't mind the awkwardness.
Yeah, just don't mind. One of us may have a whole conversation with a cardboard cutout at Target, thinking it's a real person. That's happened. So different awkward things, and if you can tolerate our awkwardness and see it as an endearing quality, then we're good. We can be friends.
Okay. Well, wait a minute. Wait, was the cardboard cutout at least a celebrity?
No. So this is a Mary story. And so she's just this little cute pocket person, but she's super awkward, and she's in Target and wasn't paying attention and bumped into a cardboard cutout. It was just a cardboard cutout. And she goes, "Oh, sorry." And then looked up, and it was a cardboard cutout. She's apologizing to a cardboard cutout, but then doubles down on the awkwardness and is like, "Why am I talking to you? You're not real." The conversation continues, and it would be okay if it was 2 a.m. at Walmart, but no, this is peak Target time. There's people around watching her just have this conversation with a cardboard cutout.
If she was on the cashier line, she could have said, "Well, he's going to pay for it. I get
right." He's my new friend.
That would actually be a good cover when you think about it, though.
Right?
You have that awkward moment, and you say, "What are you looking at?" "I'm talking to my friend," and you just walk right out with it.
See that, but that's the problem, though, is we don't cover smoothly. We make things worse. We did an episode, recent episode. In fact, I think the last episode, it was called Spit Take. And the reason why is I'm a great public speaker. I don't usually spit when I speak to people, but for some reason, twice in one day, I spit. And it wasn't just a little spit driblet. It was like the snake, I gleeked on someone. And instead of just saying, "Hey, sorry," I said, "Well, I guess you didn't know you were going to be in the splash section today." Who says that? Who says that? I'm a restaurant manager. Okay. So I do, table touches, and I'm asking, how is everything? And someone said, "Well, look, I licked my plate clean." And then I said, "Well, I guess we don't have to run it through the dishwashing machine now." Who says that? At a restaurant, now they're thinking that we don't wash the dishes. It's stuff like that we do. And it's it's no wonder we can't make new friends.
Okay. So I'm curious, when you're not working on your show and not worried about competing about that other podcast with a similar name, right, are there podcasts that you like to listen to?
I do. I've got some friends that have a very, very popular Disney podcast. It's called the His podcast. So DIZHIZ. And each week they take a deep dive into a Disney topic, whether it's an attraction, a restaurant, a movie, a different Imagineer. And it's a really, really funny, entertaining show. So that's one of my favorites that I listen to. Also, Don't Wreck Yourself, which is they tackle topics that are wrecking the internet and kind of poke holes in it and see if they're plausible. And it's a really, really funny, really well done show.
Okay. Now, before I ask you for a little shameless self-promotion, when you talked about the Jersey Man, Florida Man, do you have a favorite one of that? I'm sure there's got to be something that
what's funny about that is again, a very, very talented and gifted writer. Every Jersey Man, Florida Man starts with, "I'm in the New Friends newsroom this week located," and he references things from the prior episode and pokes fun at us.
Mm-hmm.
So I forget the news stories, to be honest with you. I forget that there's a whole game going on because he's just so funny and so talented and so gifted in his delivery. I think the most recent one that he did is probably my favorite because he was in the new. He hates the Indiana Jones stunt show at Disney's Hollywood Studio.
Okay,
that is my favorite theme park attraction of all time. And so he did this whole thing with the Indiana Jones music in the background, and he was on his quest for the gift card that he won that I never got to him. This was 1.5 years ago. I never got him the gift card that he won until he was here in Orlando 2 weeks ago, and I finally remembered to give it to him. But it was this whole funny skit referencing things that we had said over the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. And just super, super funny. Some of the news stories are really, really bizarre. And I can't remember one off the top of my head, but they're super bizarre because you do have that element of Florida Man, and everybody knows Florida. We're crazy here. We did too much sun. The heat's getting to us. We're not hydrated, and we just do crazy, stupid things.
I remember seeing a story online about a couple that was arrested because they were throwing spaghetti in each other's faces in the Olive Garden.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Florida, there's, oh gosh. I mean, imagine, the people of Walmart. You see memes with the people of Walmart. Well, imagine everybody in the entire state are the people of Walmart. Like, the people of Walmart don't shock me because I see it, all around Florida.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, if people want to hear more, they're going to have to listen to your podcast. So now we can jump smoothly into a little bit of shameless self-promotion.
Shameless self-promotion.
Absolutely. No New Friends Podcast, the podcast for adults who love to laugh at adulting, the good, the bad, and the funny. We are on all podcasting platforms. You name it, we're on it. And you can check out our website, nonewfriendspodcast.com. We've got a merch line with all of our funny sayings, and Bubba Job has his own merch line. We just released a pride line. So everything is on our website, nonewfriendspodcast.com. We're on Facebook, the Instagram, the YouTube, the TikTok. We're everywhere. We're probably in too many places, but we're everywhere.
Okay. There you have it. His name is Scott. He is from the No New Friends podcast. So be sure to check out his show with him and all his friends and Bubba Job and Jersey Man, Florida Man, and who else knows who's ever going to show up. So Scott, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Now it's time for Sherpa Samples. If you've got a podcast you'd like us to sample, contact us, and we'll mention your name on the show.
So for this episode's Sherpa Samples, I did a little diving into the Spotify app, and I found some pretty interesting podcasts. Some you're going to like, some you might not like, but there's plenty to just check out, and there's lots to go around. And if you've got a podcast that you want me to check out, you know what to do. Just get in touch with me. That's all. Message me on Sherpalution on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. And if I have not yet listened to that podcast, and I've listened to a bunch, Rebels, trust me, I will check it out, and you will get a mention on the show. That's simple. Wow. You can be famous, just like me. Speaking of fame, some of these podcasts were hosted by people from social media, such as Brain Leak, which was hosted by two guys from YouTube. And one was from Ireland, and one, I believe, was from Maine. I guess it was like their debut podcast. So whatever they're going to talk about, I'm sure it'll probably be whatever it was on their YouTube channel. They were kind of silly. I thought they were younger, but they were actually in their 30s. But who am I to talk about maturity? Nope, not me. Not me. Also, regarding people on social media, the comment section with Drew Afualo. I'm hoping I'm saying her name right. She was a TikTok star who kind of got famous, I guess, making fun of men and shaming them and being, I guess, sort of like an insult comic. So I heard her interview with Bob the Drag Queen in this episode, and she talked a lot about comedy. I thought she was going to be a little more brutal in the show, but she actually was not. She was actually very friendly to her guest and to her audience as well. I've never seen her on TikTok, so I don't know what the act is there. So if you're a fan, check out her podcast. It's that simple. The Jordan B. Peterson podcast. That's Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. He is a member of the Morning Wire News Networks. They're a conservative news outlet. So if you are a fan of the Morning Wire brand of podcasts, there's another one for you to check out. I didn't really know what to make of it, to be honest with you. It was interesting because there were things that called him an intellectual. And I think there's a big difference between an intellectual and an educated person who has really one-sided opinions. But that's up for you to decide, not me. I'm just calling it like I see it. That's all. Red Handed is a true crime podcast hosted by two British women. I didn't catch their names. The episode that they did has to do with the murder of Gabby Petito, a young woman from Long Island, at the hands of her fiancé, Brian Laundrie. The story captured quite a bit of national attention, and it was unfortunately very tragic all around. But these two hosts definitely make no bones about their feelings for Mr. Laundrie. I'll just put it to you that way. Heart Starts Pounding is a collection of a lot of spooky stories, as you could probably tell. And the episode that I listened to was a lot of spooky stories that were actually sent in by the listeners of the podcast. It's good, scary stuff if you want to be spooky. Stolen, Surviving St. Michael's, The Search For Germain is a true crime podcast. Also had to do with the abduction of a young indigenous woman in Montana. And for those of you not living in the United States, I know in Canada and in the United States, this is a serious problem with a lot of indigenous women being kidnapped and killed. So I'm sure I didn't hear every episode of this podcast, but it's definitely some powerful stuff if you want to check that out as well. Bad Friends, I guess that's like a comedy podcast with Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino. I don't know who Andrew Santino was. I know Bobby Lee used to be on a TV show called Mad TV. And what was the other one? Single Parents? I think that was the other TV show. Andrew Santino actually wasn't on this episode. There was a substitute host. So if you're a fan of their style of comedy, I think they're on YouTube also. I'm not sure. You can check out that podcast. The Mindset Mentor is hosted by Rob Dial, and he's like a self-help guy, I guess, just really helping to kind of put your brain at ease. And what he was talking about was about how to stop procrastinating. And I was going to stop procrastinating last week, but I'll get around to that sooner or later. Normal Gossip is a podcast about gossip. And it's not all celebrity gossip, too. They talk about the nature of gossip. They have guests on. And they also have discussions about items of gossip that are sent in by some of the listeners. And they kind of, I guess, pass their own judgment on that gossip as well. So if you are a gossip fan and you like hearing these little stories, you want to check out that podcast. Finally, the one that I really enjoyed probably out of this whole batch was a relatively new podcast called Wiser Than Me. It's hosted by Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And for those of you who might think that name is familiar, she has been in numerous comedies. She started in Veep, the new Old Christine. And of course, she was Elaine Bennis in Seinfeld, where probably a lot of you may know her, or you may even know her from her time on Saturday Night Live as well. In this podcast, she talks to women older than her to get some advice. And the episode that I listened to, she interviewed Jane Fonda, and it was a really great conversation between the two of them. It was fascinating. And I got to say, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is definitely a natural interviewer. And I wouldn't have expected that. I mean, the woman is obviously very talented. But even though this is geared towards women, I really enjoyed the podcast and the conversation. It wasn't two women-y guys, so don't worry. You can enjoy it too as well. So I think that will cover all 10 for Sherpa Samples. And I've already got another bunch of 10 that I've just listened to now. That'll be on our next episode. I've got plenty of them. But again, if there's one that you want me to check out, let me know. And I will do that if I have not yet heard it. So with that said, I guess we can, head on into the outro. Let's go. Everybody out. Come on, move it.
Let's get back to the Sherpa.
Sorry about that.
No!
A very special thanks to Scott, and be sure to check out his podcast, No New Friends, where you get your podcasts. And I've got a little proposition for you. How would you like to do something nice for somebody, and while doing so, be entered in a contest? You know what you need to do? I'm sure you've been hearing about it these last couple of weeks. All you need to do is, if you could please, go to Apple Podcasts and leave a nice review for this show and let me know, and you could be entered in our 100 review contest, where once we get 100 reviews, we're going to select one of those reviewers and we're going to give them some podcast merchandise. That's right. You get to choose it out, and I will pay for it and have it sent to your lovely abode so you can model it for all your friends and family to be the envy. I don't know what I'm saying. But anyway, you can win some podcast merchandise. So that's pretty cool. So that's all you need to do. Just go to Apple Podcasts, leave a nice review, and let me know. Message me on social media, Sherpolution at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and you, poof, will be entered just like that. So thank you so much for spending a little time here with me at the Sherpa Chalet and checking out some podcasts. And we'll be here next week, as we always are. New episodes every Wednesday. It's just a nice way to break up the middle of your week. and I'm glad to be here to do that for you. So until next time, Lord Mr. Bruce and I will be heading out of here, and we will be getting ready for our next episode that will be waiting just for you if you hit that subscribe button. And who knows what it'll be. It'll be a pleasant surprise to you, I'm sure. Would I let you down? No. Have I ever lied to you? Why would I start now? Anyway, folks, enjoy the rest of your week. And as we say here on Mount Podcastia, Viva la Sherpalution. And we'll see you next time. You will be hearing from us. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Too Many Podcasts. Please disperse. You can go home now. I said you can go home now. Viva la Chapelition. Viva la Chapelition. Oh. Yeah, I'll come back now, you hear?
You know, Rebels, if you've been checking out some of my promotional ads on social media, you will be aware that I have been using a lot of AI programs to help me create ads. But you know what? There's a lot more uses for AI than just funny little videos. And I'd like to introduce one of our new sponsors, Podium. It is a leader in creating AI tools for podcasters. Now, let's say you've got a podcast, or maybe you're even thinking of doing a podcast. You're probably wondering, well, how can AI be integrated with your workflow? I'll tell you about Podium. As a podcaster, you know that writing show notes and creating chapters and transcribing episodes takes a lot of time, and it can cost you a lot of money too. But you know what? That's where Podium comes in. It's an AI tool designed specifically for creators and podcasters with the goal of making post-production tasks quick and easy. And in just a few minutes, Podium generates show notes, chapters, summaries, clips for social media, a full transcript, suggested episode titles, social media posts, and more. Whew, that's a lot of work for one little program. Your show notes are key to your podcast's success because it helps new listeners find your podcast and they'll know if it's a fit for them. You know, kind of like Too Many Podcasts. It also improves your SEO, that's your search engine optimization. Ooh, big phrase there. And overall accessibility. And with Podium, you can focus on creating a great podcast and let Podium's AI do the heavy lifting. But Podium isn't just for solo creators and podcasters. It's a game changer for editors, producers, marketers, agencies, and production studios. Teams that use Podiums are able to increase workloads, decrease turnaround times, and improve their quality. How does it work? Very easy. First, go to Podium's website, and you'll see that link that's right there in the show notes. You get 3 hours free just to try it. Pretty cool, huh? And using that link also supports this show as well. And you know what else happens? Because I'm a good guy. You use my link, you will get 50% off for your first month. So visit the site, upload an MP3 file, and download your files, and that's it. And if you need anything else, you can use Podium GPT to generate articles and any marketing copy you might need in seconds. Instant show notes, transcripts, chapters for your podcast or channel. This will level up that podcast. So check out Podium today.